what a difference that made. And I'm only 10 days in. Skin, digestive, and stool energy was starting to improve.
Hi, everyone. I'm Anna Manuel. I'm the co host of Transform Table Talk Live alongside Dr. Maggie Yu. Today, we have an interview for you with Jim. Jim is someone who has been an athlete his entire life, and he's also a busy man running multiple businesses in the real estate industry. Jim, though, got sick. It was long haul that really changed his life dramatically here, and traumatically too, if we really want to talk about it. He started getting joint pain, widespread joint pain throughout his body, and then he was unable to do even just basic things like open the cap off of a coffee creamer when this man had been an athlete his whole life, enjoyed golfing and working out, and played football. Not anymore. He was unable to utilize his body in that way. Then the fatigue set in. He was so exhausted all the time. He was going to bed. By 3 o'clock, it was hitting him and he couldn't function anymore. He was having a lot of sleep disturbances and the brain fog. The brain fog was so thick, he was having a lot of trouble even functioning properly in his job, much less this is a guy who was running a business and had multiple clients to take care of and other employees and things like that to help out. He wasn't able to do that anymore. He was working with about a dozen doctors to get to the root of all of his problems and wasn't getting very far. This had gone on for about 2.5 years. Several years had passed, and Jim wasn't getting any better. Maybe he would make a little bit of progress, and then everything would get bad again. Well, he came across Dr. Maggie. He says it was divine intervention. You'll have to hear what he says about how this came to him and how it's changed his life. I can't wait for you to hear how Jim is doing today. All right, Jim, why don't you introduce yourself?
All right. My name is Jim Britton, and I live in Satellite Beach, Florida. I'm a real estate broker and love what I do. I have two daughters and used to be very active, and I'm soon returning back to that golfing, working out, things of that nature.
You're a golfer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, my husband loves to golf also. It can take up a lot of time, but what a fun hobby. And it's something that you had to pull back from, though, over the last how long?
At least 2.5 years.
So you're missing those activities that you loved so much.
That's right. I did
It's,
manage to get out, though. I got out recently.
oh, you
It
did?
went very well. Beautiful day. It was
I love to
amazing.
hear it. Okay, so let's talk about what kept you from these enjoyable hobbies for the last 2.5 years. It sounds like you were dealing, well, from what I understand, it all started with long haul symptoms.
That's right. Shortly after, I noticed an increase in some joint pain, but it was moving quickly and becoming more painful. I went and had that looked at, and the next thing I know, other areas were being affected and fatigue. So I was sent to a rheumatologist where she said, "You have an autoimmune disease. Your autoimmune is hyperactive and it's attacking healthy parts of your body." And it went from there.
Hi, I'm Maggie UMD, and I'm a functional and holistic medicine physician and the creator of the Transform and Transform protocol. If you're interested in learning what are the root causes of all chronic disease, go ahead and click the link in the description where I have a power pack 30-minute training that goes over what are the 5 pillars of Transform. Go ahead, click the link, and I'll see you in that training.
When you say you had joint pain, we're talking about widespread full body joint pain, things that now were holding you back from doing physical activities.
Absolutely. At the worst, I wasn't able to twist off a plastic cap on my coffee creamer. I'd had to get tools and things. It spread from originally in my wrist to both wrists. It was also diagnosed through an imagery scan that it was attacking muscles and nerves. I'm not sure how they can see that, but it traveled through my low back. My feet were real bad. And so, yeah, it got to the point where I was completely debilitated at times.
When it was traveling through your feet, now this is impacting even your ability to walk or what?
There was a period of time I can remember being in, because I was pretty much, stuck to the house. I would attempt to go do things because you've lived a long life taking things for granted, and that would wear me out, the smallest little activity. I remember a couple of times being in a situation where I just needed to get to the bathroom and had to do that on all fours.
So you used to be an active guy. You mentioned you were on the golf course and you would go to the gym, and now you're reduced to crawling to the bathroom. I'm just curious, what that felt like for you.
I've been active my whole life. I've always worked out. I've always run, swim. So there was always something to do. And my enjoyment, my satisfaction was doing those things. So to find yourself in a situation where you're completely fatigued, everything hurts, you can't, that whole part of your life has not only been removed, but the fear of, is this the way it is for the rest of your life, is it takes you to a dark place. And I know better, but it did, and I would fight as hard as I could. But it's a hard thing to deal with.
So the depression really started to set in.
I found a great way to fight that depression and not give into it, and that was very helpful. But at the end of the day, when you're not only threatened with losing mobility and getting around and brain fog and losing your income, your business, and you become isolated, it's a constant job to be cautious and pay attention to the self-pity and the things of that nature. They're just going to have you spiral down.
Okay, you mentioned a lot of other issues here. You mentioned, in addition to the joint pain, you mentioned the fatigue and the brain fog. So, what was going on? How tired were you exactly when it comes to this fatigue?
I was, and again, the worst case was an event I can remember where I didn't leave my room. I hardly ate for 3 days, but I had scheduled things that I was trying to get, even calls, return calls, things of that nature. And it just couldn't happen. I would fall asleep. I'd sleep past the alarm. And when I'd wake up, I'd be like, time to go. It's ready to go. Come on. But I was exhausted. And I literally felt like, as I said earlier, it was just like you were being put back to sleep. That type of, you can't fight it.
Like under
And
anesthesia.
exactly. As if that was the best way I could relate it, was right before going to surgery and they give you anesthesia and you were like aware. And then the next thing you know, I'd wake up 4 hours later, middle of the night, and I had done nothing. Now that was the worst case scenario. But as I started getting treatments with biologics and things of that nature, I would feel some relief, but they would not last for more than a couple of months at the most. So during those times, the fatigue was still there. What made it worse was the cognitive ability, really the brain fog, unable to find words, to read and comprehend, and have a conversation with my customers, family, and friends. I wasn't embarrassed. In the beginning, I was. It's hard to know what you want to say and not be able to get it.
Yes, yes. And here you are, you're a business owner. You have to be able to have your mental capacity intact. You were mentioning to me that there were courses that you used to teach that you couldn't even recall details of.
Yeah, I taught every phase of real estate and contracts. That's kind of hard when you're trying to convey knowledge to somebody and you can't find the right words.
That went on for about over 2 years or so.
Yeah, a little over 2 years.
So when you were referencing you were able to kind of ward off that depression, it was through your own mindset work.
Yes, I'm very spiritual. Thank God that started about 4.5 years ago for me.
Mm.
And I relied heavily on my creator through that time. That's why I put mindset of all the 5 pillars and things that I went through in that program. The body follows the mind. It's a huge statement. It's 100%
It's
what I
so
believe.
powerful. I know, because it's like you said, you have to have your mind in a place to be ready to heal and to be ready to not accept negative thoughts coming your way. I know that's very
Absolutely.
impactful for people.
Absolutely.
I want to get back to your sleep because you mentioned that you were falling asleep and then waking up 4 hours later, but you were never really getting restful sleep, even though you were sleeping so much, right?
No, I can recall many times I would be going to bed early, 3 in the afternoon, 3 in the morning, I'd wake up and I would be more tired and more brain fog upon waking up, but I was still able to get up and get going and do what I needed to do. But I could not get a deep, restful sleep
You were just exhausted, exhausted.
all the time.
Okay, I want to hear, how is Jim doing now? Where do we stand with the crushing joint pain, unable to open up the coffee creamer cap? Can we do that now?
Not only that, but I would say it's almost 3 weeks now. I just worked out again today. And I mean, free weights. I was lifting and exercising almost as heavy as I was 3 years ago.
Okay, so you're back.
I don't want to say that. I think my mindset is that this is something that is incredibly beyond what I could ever have imagined and it's manageable. And as long as I'm following and paying attention, I just went back through the notes today and learned something new about, some gluten places that might be hiding. So it's maintenance and understanding which the tools that were given to me through the grace of Maggie and everyone else that helped in that program. When something's not quite right, you're able to kind of do some diagnosis and look back and base it on data and how you felt. This, where I am right now, energy wise, fatigue, cognitive ability, all those things have been so much improved. If anyone would have said to me 2.5, 3 months ago that I would be feeling like this, I don't know that I would have believed. I know I wouldn't have believed.
Okay, so you mentioned the energy and the fatigue, but the brain fog, you're able to do this interview. You're able to think clearly. I think you were mentioning to me, I wouldn't have even ever agreed to do something like this and talk to you if I was still in that heavy, heavy fog.
But yeah, that fear would come in. Oh, you're going to get embarrassed because you can't speak or you can't. And I wouldn't let that bother me now. Do I have flare-ups? Do I make mistakes? Absolutely. No one's perfect, and that's okay. But overall, if you were to sit and say, hey, Jim, how was last week? To be able to work out 3 times during that week, to be able to hold conversations with my daughter, to be able to help my agents, to be able to stay up until 10:30 at night, sleep
Hey.
like a rock and wake up energized. It's amazing. And rarely do I feel any joint pain. That, if my rheumatologist gets to see this, she'll call it sorcery.
You were eventually diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis and then psoriatic
Well, I think
arthritis?
I think this might be helpful for anyone listening, because if you had my path, the clinical markers don't show up, and she would get frustrated because she's like, "Well, I can't diagnose this because of insurance." But when we look at it through CAT scan, we can see the damage being done and the inflammation. So we're going to call it reactive arthritis.
Reactive
Well, then it
arthritis.
got to the point where, because rheumatoid, I believe, only affects the joints, and when she could see it was affecting more than joints, muscle and things of that nature, she was able to clinically diagnose as a psoriatic. Because that's all. No, I take that back. It also affects the skin. I had, you name it, psoriasis, all that stuff. A lot of
Oh, you
skin.
did? Okay, so you were
Oh yeah,
dealing with skin manifestations as well.
absolutely.
And how is your skin today?
The same as everything else I've told you. My skin, Dr. Maggie always says, you can thank me later. I'm in the shower and where it used to be rough or skin flaking and things, and I'm going, I haven't changed my soap, but not that I think this is okay for a man to say, your skin feels soft. I haven't felt that soft in a long time.
I love to hear.
Yeah,
That's great. That's great. I mean, that's how
skin is much
you feel
improved.
hydrated. That's how things should be. That's how it should
Yeah.
feel. So I'm curious, before you came to find Dr. Maggie, did you try other avenues here outside of just your standard rheumatologist? What were you doing to try to get well?
Well, I was forced to see, I want to say it's close to, 10, 12 doctors, different doctors, because of the various ways it started to manifest, skin and other things. And if you're like me, what you'll notice is they're very skilled, they're very good at what they do, but they have a pair of blinders on specifically what they're I likened it to like triage, or how Western medicine came about, which was, let's cut that limb off and get it treated, and nobody was talking to each other, and they were absolutely right. They knew exactly, and they were, to a degree, hey, you have this part of your body, so let me treat that. And it just became very frustrating because you couldn't ask questions, you couldn't say, what's the root, how do we deal with the root of it?
Mm.
And that's even more of a desperate place to be in, because we know what's wrong with you, you don't.
Yeah.
And no input. I couldn't give any input. And so, to answer your question, I was desperate. I was doing whatever I could, talking to whomever I could. I was even listening to friends. Oh, I know what that is. And if it sounded like it worked, I did it.
Right. And nothing got you feeling well. So
You know,
people want to know what made the difference. This wasn't just magic, or like Dr. Maggie says, it's not woo woo. She's not reading your aura. What
yeah.
did you implement through Dr. Maggie's guidance that made such a difference for you?
Coming in with so much negativity and coming in with a doctor on the internet, are you kidding? This is going to help me when all these can't. And what I would say is, every time that I would discard that and say, why don't you just do the action exactly as she says it? And I wasn't perfect, but do it and participate in your own recovery and join in. It's an incredible system. I'm a systems guy. You saw my spreadsheet. I love order. I mean, God loves order, so to see how that system literally flowed in such a way that made it, even for a brain fogged, exhausted person, to be able to follow and get through, it's beyond explanation.
Were there specifics that you learned? For instance, did you find you were deficient in anything in particular that then was
Oh,
corrected? It made a big
yeah,
difference.
as far as starting right out of the gate, just simply hydrating properly,
Yeah.
to
You weren't doing
realize. And no, I had no idea to what degree that needed to take place. And by the way, when I talk to others, they don't either.
no.
But what a difference that made. And I'm only 10 days in, and
Mhm.
I'm noticing things.
What
And so I
did you
haven't even
notice? Energy increasing?
skin, digestive, and stool energy to a degree was starting to improve there. And then just to be able to understanding the why makes the how a lot easier. That was
Mhm.
huge for me.
So, getting to the specifics though, because that's what people want to know. How did he get here? Specifically, it was the hydration was a big one for you. Did you have any nutrient deficiencies?
Absolutely. And so going through first, the next step was the gluten free,
Ah,
not realizing the damage that that does, whether you are, gluten sensitive or not, or your food mapping says gluten's okay, to the degree of damage that does to the intestinal tract. That was that was eye opening because I didn't know it at that time, but it was revealed to me through the data in the food mapping when I could see so many different foods that were a staple, things that I was eating. And when you start getting a bunch of stuff showing up all over the place, you've got a bit of a leaky gut. You got cracks in the intestinal wall. So to be able to understand, like I said again, the why. So the gluten free was trying to find it, read it out, make sure it's not a part. That was a big plus.
and
But what
we
you were
didn't mention this, but you had diverticulitis as well.
correct, yeah, and I'm sure that would have been treated totally different.
Mhm.
So I'm on that path, and then the food mapping.
Food mapping. What'd you learn? What did you learn about
Oh,
your food mapping?
well, I learned that I can't have any animal dairy and a lot of things. But the most important thing I remember Dr. Maggie asking me, because when dairy showed up and a couple of other things, I heard that negative thought pop
Like,
in,
oh, I
and
can't have love.
right away, it got replaced with, yeah, but look at all the hundreds of thousands of other things that you haven't eaten, you can start eating.
And you actually lost weight throughout this program, right?
I lost 20 pounds eating minimum three times, maybe close to four times more food.
Did you have any idea before? I mean, when you're talking about you wouldn't eat all day until the night and then you would kind of overflow on the food, binge a little bit. Your blood sugar must have been so out of balance. Did you have any
I,
idea that was happening? Had
I
anyone
had
ever
no
mentioned it?
idea that hypo and hyper until I learned it in there. I'm like, yeah, that's what would happen to me.
And the
And
impact that blood sugar has on your overall health?
right, right. So again, that was enormous. And then being taught again, look here, just think of your plate as one third, protein, one third fat, one third. So that was huge.
Okay, what about your vitamins? What did you learn about that? Were you good with your iron and your vitamin D and your B12 and all?
No, I did not know that. First of all, vitamin D was a hormone,
Yeah.
and how that hormone is so critical. I was deficient. I take 10,000 IU's every day, so I don't save it up, even though you can. I learned that too. Save it up at the end of the week. So I take that. My supplement list is phenomenal. I've gotten on the omegas. I'm on the because I am still and probably will be back because I'm dealing with some gut issues, and that's
Mhm.
normal, and I got to get that straightened out. So I'm doing the pro and prebiotics. I actually saw a video on Manuka honey. I started that right away. And yeah, I could go on and on. Digest it is huge.
Yep. Did
That's
you
a
ever
daily
think that you
staple.
needed that kind of digestive support? Ever? No one had ever mentioned it to you?
No, and it's counterintuitive for someone like me who just swells with acid. You're thinking the opposite. I can remember when Dr. Maggie said, if you have autoimmune, you have low stomach acid. I'm like, not this. But I didn't understood how and why that was working. And so there's a
And
lot of there I don't want to go into, but to digest it, it made sense once I got through that not only do I need that to help while I'm getting my digestive system in order, I need that to break down or I'm wasting my money on these supplements, some of them that require to be taken with food and be absorbed properly.
Well, and I know you mentioned you had gastro reflux. Were you on medication for that?
Yes, I'm on a PPI in the morning and one at night, and Dr. Maggie knows how I feel about all that. I want off, but I am being a good patient and understand that there's a process to this, and in time, I'll be off of them, which will probably help greatly because they actually long-term use of those create
Right.
problems.
Has this impacted those around you? You referenced your daughter there, but specifically, how has this impacted the lives of those around you?
One of the mindset modules was about boundaries.
Mhm.
And when I looked at that, that was a punch in the gut to see my daughter on the fifth or sixth rung and to see someone else even further out in my time at the church. Anyway, long story short, it's the same concept as sitting and praying, and faith is great. But once I looked at it, the next page is what are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
So this may not be for everybody, but for me, what I heard was I had given 4.5 years to the largest trade association in North America, the state of Florida, and to my county, and I resigned.
Mm.
I walked away. I was taking care of two elderly people. I put things back in order, and I got on a plane and I flew up to visit my daughter in Vermont. So how has it impacted them? I hope by actions. I don't believe we put as much value on what we say, and so when I saw it, I'm like, yeah, you're going to have to do this. So I took action. And when she called and said, well, what about this and what about that? I said, I don't have to worry about that. I'm here if they need me, but I need to focus on these things. And you're in that close circle.
Yeah. You reprioritized your life.
Hmm.
You really committed, and that everybody that goes through this program, and I'll ask you that, would you say that everybody that goes through this program and really commits to it and follows the instructions and does what Dr. Maggie and the functional nutritionist and your pod leader suggests, would you say that everyone who takes those steps will see improvement?
Absolutely. No doubt. And you don't have to be perfect. Trust me. You don't have to worry about, well, I have brain fog or I'm not up for it, or well, you may have to I made a decision midway through it that I had to devote to this and it meant doing some things. And that you may find yourself in that situation. Hopefully, what I've just said will ring in your ears and you'll do it. But I couldn't agree more with what you said. Every time that I recommitted and every time that I said, just do it
Mm.
exactly as you're told, as best you can, not exactly, but as best you can, and just try to improve. If you do that, I couldn't agree more with what you said. Absolutely. You'll look back and you'll thank her later.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned thanking her later. What was it like working with Dr. Maggie? Because people are curious. They see how she is in the videos and they wonder, am I really going to get that much time with her? And what is it going to be like to get a chance to work with her?
It's life changing. If you spend time looking at the naysayers and what they say about her, and you allow that to change your mind, or once you get in and something rubs you the wrong way, or you don't realize she's trying to herd 100 different, brain fogged people, you don't see what's really going on, you can easily get your feelings hurt. But if you're able to say to yourself, why am I uncomfortable about that, and work through it and really embrace what she's doing, you will see and hear and implement some incredible things that will not only change your life, but the loved ones around you, because they're going to see it and they're going to want it too.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. I am so happy for you that your life is back to where you want to be. You're hitting the golf course, you're working out, you're enjoying time with your family, and your businesses are once again on track. You don't have to worry about what's going to happen to them. You got your life back.
Yeah, absolutely.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
So listen, Jim said to me, let's cut the part out about me getting emotional. And I get that because you don't want to show just how painful all of this has been, right? But it's so important because he was in a very dark place and he wasn't feeling like he was questioning really, is this going to be my life for the rest of my life? How many people out there have thought that because you're dealing with a chronic health condition and you thought, Am I going to live like this forever? I know that's something that I dealt with when I was at my sickest. How am I going to live like this for the rest of my life? But Jim was able to find a solution. And as he tells it, everybody who went through Dr. Maggie's program that's implementing what she's saying to do sees dramatic improvements. Everybody's getting better, everybody's having wins. So, if this is something that you're interested in checking out and learning more about, or getting resources to find out about how can this help you potentially or somebody that you love, go ahead. You'll find a link above or below this video to reach out to the team and see what kind of resources they can provide to you to see how it might be right for you. I'm Anna Manuel on behalf of Dr. Maggie Yu. Thank you for watching.
Hi, and thank you for watching this video. If you're interested in actively looking for a solution to your problem and you'd like to work with us, I'm going to invite you to go ahead and click the link in the description to book a chat with our team. What that's going to do is it's going to bring you to a calendar, pick a time that's going to suit your needs best. It's going to be about a 15-minute phone call. After you book that call, there's going to be a link to a short questionnaire, and that's really important for you to fill out because it's for us to get to know you better and helps us to better prepare to make the most of our time together. After you fill out the short application, it's going to take you to a page where there's a couple resources. What I want you to do is go ahead and click 2 of those and watch those 2 trainings. They're going to really best prepare you for your phone call with us to make the best use of our time together. I and my team look forward to talking to you to learn more about you, to see if we are indeed a good fit to work together. Thank you.